The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in September 1882, and Clara Foster knew immediately it would change her life, though she could not have imagined how completely it would turn her world inside out. She stood behind the worn wooden counter of the Empire City Post Office in Colorado Territory, sorting through the morning's delivery with practiced efficiency. Her father, Samuel Foster, the postmaster, had fallen ill 3 weeks earlier with a fever that left him weak and confined to their small house behind the building. At 22, Clara had taken over his duties without complaint, her capable hands moving through the letters and parcels with the same careful attention her father had always shown. Empire City was not large, barely 300 souls, but it sat at the crossroads between Denver and the mining camps further west, which meant a steady stream of correspondence flowed through their doors. The envelope that caught her attention was unremarkable at first glance, addressed simply to the postmaster's daughter, Empire City, Colorado Territory. No return address marked the corner. The handwriting was bold but unpracticed, the letters formed with obvious care by someone more accustomed to holding reins than a pen. Clara's heart quickened as she turned it over in her hands. In all her years helping her father, she had never received correspondence addressed to her in such a manner. She glanced toward the door, confirming she was alone, then carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside was rough, the kind cowboys carried in their saddlebags. The message was brief. Miss Foster, I have watched you through the post office window for 3 months now. Every Tuesday and Friday when I come to town for supplies, I see you sorting letters with such care, like each one matters to you personally. You smile when you read the return addresses, probably imagining the stories behind them. I am not good with words, but I wanted you to know that someone sees you. Someone thinks about those smiles long after he has ridden back to the ranch. If you would permit me to introduce myself properly, I will be at the dance this Saturday evening. I will wear a blue shirt and a black vest. If you wear something yellow, I will know you are willing to meet me. If not, I will understand and trouble you no more. Respectfully, Nathan Ellis. Clara read the letter 3 times, her cheeks growing warmer with each reading. She knew Nathan Ellis by sight and reputation. He worked at the Double Bar Ranch 5 miles east of town, one of the better outfits in the area. She had noticed him, of course. A woman would have to be blind not to notice Nathan Ellis. He stood tall and lean, with dark hair that touched his collar and eyes the color of aged whiskey. But more than his appearance, there was something in the way he carried himself, a quiet confidence that did not need to announce itself with swagger or loud talk. The fact that he had noticed her, truly noticed her, made something flutter in her chest that she had almost convinced herself she would never feel. Empire City was small, and most of the young men her age had long since categorized her as the postmaster's daughter, someone respectable and untouchable, more symbol than woman. Those who had shown interest had been tepid suitors, more interested in the security her father's position represented than in Clara herself. She tucked the letter into her apron pocket and returned to sorting the mail, but her mind wandered. Saturday was 4 days away. She owned a yellow dress, one her mother had made before the influenza took her 6 years ago. It was simple but well made, with small pearl buttons down the front and lace at the collar and cuffs. She had not worn it in over a year, saving it for special occasions that rarely materialized in a town the size of Empire City. The bell above the door chimed, and Martha Green entered, her arms full of packages to mail to her daughter in Kansas City. Clara pushed thoughts of Nathan Ellis aside and focused on her work, weighing parcels and calculating postage with the efficiency that came from years of practice. But throughout the day, between customers and sorting duties, her hand kept drifting to the pocket of her apron, feeling the folded paper there like a secret promise. That evening, after she had closed the post office and prepared supper for her father, she sat by his bedside while he ate thin soup. Samuel Foster had lost weight during his illness, his face gaunt and his hands trembling slightly as he lifted the spoon. But his eyes remained sharp, and he studied his daughter with the same careful attention he gave to suspicious packages. "You seem distracted tonight," he said, setting down his half-finished bowl. "Something happened at the office." Clara considered lying, then decided against it. Her father had always been able to read her too well. "I received a letter, a personal one." Samuel's eyebrows rose. "From whom?" "Nathan Ellis. He works at the Double Bar Ranch." Her father was quiet for a moment, thinking. "The young man who always tips his hat to you when he picks up the ranch mail. I have seen him. Seems steady enough from what I know. What did his letter say?" Clara retrieved it from her apron and handed it to her father, watching his face as he read. When he finished, he folded it carefully and gave it back to her. "Well?" she asked when he said nothing. "Well, what? You are 22 years old, Clara. Old enough to decide for yourself whether to wear a yellow dress to a dance." He paused, then added, "Your mother would have liked the romance of it. A letter to the postmaster's daughter. You think I should go? I think you have been taking care of me and this post office for long enough. You deserve some happiness of your own." He reached out and took her hand, his grip weak but warm. "I am getting better. Doc Stevens says another week and I will be back on my feet. You do not need to sacrifice your life for mine." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "I am not sacrificing anything." "You are, and we both know it. How many times has Nancy Wilson invited you to social events that you declined because you were caring for me? How many young men have you turned away because you thought you did not have time for courting?" He squeezed her hand gently. "Wear the yellow dress, Clara. See what happens." The next 4 days passed with agonizing slowness. Clara threw herself into her work, organizing the post office with such thoroughness that every cubbyhole was perfectly arranged and every loose paper filed. She helped Mrs. Chen, who ran the general store next door, inventory her stock. She volunteered to help Nancy Wilson prepare food for Saturday's dance. Anything to keep her mind occupied and away from thoughts of Nathan Ellis and his letter. But at night, lying in her narrow bed, she could not stop her imagination from running wild. What would they talk about? What if they had nothing in common? What if he was disappointed when he actually met her? When she was no longer just a figure glimpsed through a window but a real woman with rough hands from work, and a tendency to speak her mind too freely. Saturday arrived bright and clear. One of those perfect September days when summer had not quite released its hold but autumn waited just around the corner. Clara woke early, nerves making sleep impossible. She helped her father with breakfast, relieved to see him eating more heartily than he had in weeks. Doc Stevens had been right. Samuel Foster was recovering his strength day by day. The dance was to be held in the town hall, a large wooden structure that served multiple purposes depending on the day. On Sundays, it was a church. On weekdays, it sometimes functioned as a schoolhouse. And on Saturday nights, it transformed into the social center of Empire City. Clara spent the afternoon helping Nancy and several other women decorate, hanging paper lanterns and arranging tables for refreshments. The musicians arrived around 4 in the afternoon, 3 men with a fiddle, a guitar, and a harmonica who would provide music until midnight. Nancy, a petite woman with auburn hair and a knowing smile, cornered Clara as they arranged cookies on platters. "You are wearing your yellow dress tonight, are you not?" Clara nearly dropped the plate she was holding. "How did you know about that?" I did not, but your reaction just told me everything. Nancy grinned. Who is he? I do not know yet, not really. But you want to know? Clara hesitated, then nodded. Yes, I want to know. Good, it is about time. Nancy squeezed her arm. Go home, get ready. Make yourself feel beautiful, because you are. Clara walked back to the small house behind the post office as the afternoon sun began its descent toward the mountains. She heated water for a bath, scrubbing away the week's work with lavender soap she had been saving. She washed her hair and sat by the window while it dried, brushing it until it shone like honey in the golden light. The yellow dress fit perfectly, as if her mother had somehow known when making it that Clara would need it for exactly this moment. She studied herself in the small mirror above her dresser, barely recognizing the woman who looked back. She wore her hair down, unusual for her, the waves falling past her shoulders. A touch of rose oil at her wrists and throat. No jewelry except her mother's simple gold locket. Her father was dozing in his chair when she came to say goodbye, but he opened his eyes as she entered. For a moment he just looked at her, and she saw his eyes grow wet. You look just like your mother did at that age, he said quietly. She would be so proud of you, Clara girl. Clara kissed his forehead. I will not be late. Stay as late as you like. I am fine. I have my book and a lamp and nothing but time. The walk to the town hall took less than 5 minutes, but each step felt momentous. Clara could hear the music already starting, the bright notes of the fiddle floating through the evening air. People were arriving from all directions, families and couples and groups of young people laughing and calling to each other. Saturday night dances were one of the few entertainments available in Empire City, and people came from miles around to attend. Clara paused at the bottom of the steps leading to the hall's entrance, smoothing her dress one more time. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might be visible through the fabric. What if Nathan Ellis had changed his mind? What if he was not there? What if he was there with someone else? She forced herself to climb the steps and enter the hall. The space had been transformed. Lanterns cast warm light across the wooden floor, already crowded with dancers. Tables lined the walls, laden with food and drink. Children ran between the adults, their laughter adding to the general din. Clara stood just inside the doorway, scanning the crowd, looking for a blue shirt and black vest. Miss Foster. She turned and found herself looking up into the weathered face of Nathan Ellis. He was taller than she had realized, his shoulders broad beneath the promised blue shirt and black vest. His dark hair was neatly combed, still slightly damp, and he smelled of soap and leather and something else she could not quite identify. Pine, maybe. His hands held his hat, fingers working the brim nervously. Mr. Ellis, she managed, grateful her voice came out steady. You wore yellow. His smile transformed his face, erasing the nervous tension there. I hoped you would, but I was not sure. I almost did not, she admitted. I was nervous, me too, still am. He glanced around at the crowded hall. Would you like to step outside for a moment? It is loud in here, and I would like to actually hear you when we talk. Clara nodded, and he offered his arm. She took it, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric, and let him guide her back outside onto the wide porch that wrapped around the town hall. Several other couples had the same idea, seeking quieter spaces for conversation, but Nathan led her to the far end where they could have relative privacy. For a moment they stood in silence, looking out at Empire City as dusk settled over the town. Lamps were being lit in windows, creating pools of golden light along the main street. The mountains rose dark against the purple sky to the west. Thank you for the letter, Clara said finally. It was unexpected. I must have written it 20 times before I got it right. Even then, I am not sure I said what I meant. He turned to face her, his expression earnest. I have wanted to speak to you for months, but I could never find the courage. Every time I came to town, I told myself this would be the day I would introduce myself properly, and every time I just collected the ranch mail and left like a coward. You do not seem like a coward. Maybe not about most things, but you terrified me. He said it with such honesty that Clara felt something inside her chest loosen and expand. You still do a little. I terrify you. Why? Nathan ran a hand through his hair, mussing the careful combing. Because from the first time I saw you, something in me knew you were important. And I have never been good with important things. I can break a horse, work cattle, fix a fence, shoot straight. But talking to a woman I cannot stop thinking about, that is harder than anything I have ever done. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. You think about me, constantly. It is becoming a problem. I missed branding 3 calves last week because I was distracted thinking about the way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you are concentrating on something. She laughed, surprised and delighted. That is very specific. I notice things about you. I cannot help it. He stepped closer, not inappropriately so, but enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. I would like to know more. Everything, if you will let me. What you think about when you sort those letters, what you dream about, what makes you laugh. What scares you? All of it. Clara had never heard anyone speak to her like this, with such direct intensity. Most men she knew hid behind pleasantries and proper courtship rituals. Nathan Ellis was laying himself bare, offering honesty without armor, and it made her want to do the same. I think about the people who write the letters, she said. I imagine their lives, their stories. A woman in Missouri writing to her sister here always includes pressed flowers, and I wonder about her garden. A man in Denver sends his mother money every month without fail, and I hope he knows how much that must mean to her. The letters are not just paper and ink to me. They are connections, threads that tie people together across distances. Nathan listened with complete attention, his eyes never leaving her face. What do you dream about? I used to dream about leaving Empire City, seeing something beyond these mountains. But when my mother died and my father needed me, those dreams felt selfish. Now I dream about smaller things. A full bookshelf, a garden of my own, someone to talk to who really listens. She paused. What about you? What do you dream about? I dream about having my own ranch someday. Not a big one, just enough land for a good herd and a house I built with my own hands. I dream about coming home to something more than a bunkhouse full of men who snore. I dream about mattering to someone. He smiled slightly. I dream about a woman who cares about pressed flowers in letters from Missouri. The music swelled from inside the hall and couples began emerging onto the porch for air between dances. Nathan glanced toward the door, then back at Clara. Would you like to dance? Or we could keep talking, or walk, whatever you prefer. Let us walk, Clara said, surprising herself. I want to keep talking. They descended the steps and strolled along Main Street, staying in the pools of lamplight. Empire City was quiet except for the music drifting from the town hall and the occasional bark of a dog. Most of the town's residents were either at the dance or settled in for the evening. Nathan kept a respectful distance between them, but his arm occasionally brushed hers as they walked, small points of contact that made Clara acutely aware of his presence. Tell me about your family, she said. Where are you from? Texas originally. My father had a small ranch near San Antonio, but we lost it when I was 15. Drought, debt, bad luck. He died the next year. My mother passed when I was just a baby, so I do not remember her. After my father died, I worked on various ranches, moving north gradually. I have been at the Double Bar for 2 years now. It is the longest I have stayed anywhere since leaving Texas. You like it there. The foreman is fair, the work is steady, and the pay is decent. but it is someone else's dream, not mine. I save every dollar I can, hoping that someday I will have enough to buy my own land." He looked at her. "What keeps you in Empire City? Besides your father, I mean." Clara considered the question carefully. "I used to think it was just duty, taking care of him and the post office. But lately I have realized I actually like it here. I know everyone and they know me. There is comfort in that, and the mountains." She gestured toward the dark peaks. "I never tire of looking at them. Every morning they are different, depending on the light and the season. They make me feel small in a good way, like my problems are not as large as they seem." "I know what you mean. Sometimes when I am out riding fence lines, I will just stop and look around, and it feels like the land is bigger than any worry I could have." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their footsteps echoing on the wooden boardwalk. When they reached the end of Main Street, where it dissolved into a dirt road leading out of town, they turned and headed back without discussion. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said as they walked. "In your letter, you said if I did not wear yellow, you would understand and trouble me no more. Would you really have just given up?" He thought about this. "I would have been heartbroken, but yes, I would not have wanted to make you uncomfortable. You deserved the choice. What if I had worn yellow but we had nothing to talk about? What if we had been completely wrong for each other? Then at least we would have known. At least I would not have spent the rest of my life wondering." He stopped walking and turned to face her. "But I do not think we are wrong for each other. Do you?" Clara met his gaze, seeing hope and vulnerability there in equal measure. "No. I do not think we are wrong for each other at all." The smile that spread across Nathan's face was like sunrise, bright and warming everything it touched. "Good. That is very good." They returned to the town hall and danced 3 dances, Nathan holding her respectfully but firmly, guiding her through the steps with surprising grace for a cowboy. Clara felt like she was floating, barely aware of the other dancers or the curious glances thrown their way. In a town the size of Empire City, her arrival with Nathan Ellis would be noted and discussed, but she found she did not care. When the evening grew late and the crowd began to thin, Nathan walked her home. They stood at the gate to her small house, neither wanting to end the evening. "May I see you again?" Nathan asked. "Tomorrow, perhaps, I could come by after church. I would like that. I should warn you, I am not very good at going slow. When I know what I want, I tend to pursue it directly." He said this seriously, watching her face for a reaction. Clara felt bold in the darkness, protected by the night. "What do you want?" "You. I want to know everything about you. I want to make you smile every day. I want to be the person you think about when you read those letters and imagine the stories behind them." He took a breath. "I know this is fast. I know we just met, but I also know that some things are worth being certain about quickly." "I feel the same way," Clara whispered. "It is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. The best things usually are." He reached out and took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle around hers. "Good night, Clara Foster. Thank you for wearing yellow." "Good night, Nathan Ellis. Thank you for writing the letter." She watched him walk back toward Main Street, his figure eventually disappearing into the darkness. Only then did she go inside, finding her father still awake and reading in his chair. "You are home late," Samuel said, setting down his book with a knowing smile. "Yes," Clara could not stop smiling herself. "Yes, I am." The next morning, Clara woke with a sense of anticipation that made it hard to sit still through church services. Reverend Morrison delivered a sermon about patience and faith that seemed to last hours. She spotted Nathan sitting 3 rows back, his hair still damp from washing, wearing clean clothes and looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. He caught her eye and smiled, and she felt her heart skip. After the service, as people gathered outside to socialize, Nathan made his way to her side. Samuel Foster watched the young man approach with an appraising eye. "Mr. Foster," Nathan said, removing his hat, "I wonder if I might have your permission to take Clara for a ride this afternoon. I promise to have her back before dark." Samuel studied him for a long moment. "You work at the Double Bar, is that right?" "Yes, sir. 2 years now." "Good outfit. Dan Morrison runs a tight ship out there." He glanced at Clara, then back at Nathan. "You have my permission, but I expect you to keep your word about having her home before dark." "You have my word, sir." An hour later, Clara found herself sitting beside Nathan on the bench seat of a borrowed wagon, heading east out of Empire City. The day was beautiful, warm but not hot, with a breeze that carried the scent of pine and dry grass. Nathan handled the horses with easy competence, keeping them at a steady pace. "Where are we going?" Clara asked. "There is a place I want to show you. It is about an hour's ride from here on the far corner of the Double Bar property. I go there sometimes when I need to think." They talked as they rode, conversation flowing easily. Nathan told her about growing up in Texas, memories of his father teaching him to rope and ride. Clara shared stories about her mother, the way she had filled their small house with laughter and warmth, how her absence still felt like a physical ache sometimes. "She would have liked you," Clara said. "She always said the measure of a person was not what they said but what they did when no one was watching." "What do I do when no one is watching?" "You notice things. You pay attention. You wrote me a letter even though it scared you." She looked at him. "Those are not small things." The place Nathan wanted to show her was a high meadow tucked between hills, with a clear stream running through it and a view that stretched for miles. Wildflowers still bloomed in scattered patches, defying the approaching autumn. He helped her down from the wagon and they walked to the edge of the stream where cottonwood trees provided shade. "I found this place my first month at the Double Bar," Nathan said. "I was tracking a stray cow and ended up here. It felt like a secret, something just for me. Thank you for sharing it with me." They sat on the grass near the stream, and Nathan unpacked a simple lunch he had brought: bread, cheese, apples, and a jar of cold tea. They ate and talked, the conversation ranging from serious to silly. Clara learned that Nathan could not carry a tune to save his life, but loved music anyway. Nathan learned that Clara had read every book in Empire City's small library twice and hungered for more. "What would you be doing if you were not running the post office?" he asked. "I do not know. I have never let myself think about it much." She considered the question seriously. "Maybe teaching. I like the idea of helping people learn, opening up new worlds for them through books and knowledge. You would be good at that. You are patient and you explain things clearly." He plucked a blade of grass and twirled it between his fingers. "When I get my own ranch, it will need a name. I have been trying to think of one for years, but nothing ever seems right." "What about Cottonwood Ranch? For the trees?" Nathan looked at the cottonwoods shading them, then at Clara. "Cottonwood Ranch, I like that. I like it a lot." The afternoon passed too quickly. They walked along the stream and Nathan pointed out tracks in the mud, teaching her to identify deer, raccoon, and turkey. Clara picked late blooming wildflowers and wove them into a small bouquet. They talked about everything and nothing, building the foundation of knowledge that would connect them. As the sun began its descent toward the mountains, Nathan reluctantly guided the wagon back toward Empire City. Clara sat closer to him on the return journey, their shoulders touching as the wagon swayed over the uneven road. Neither of them spoke much, content in the comfortable silence that had developed between them. "Clara," Nathan said, as the buildings of Empire City came into view, "I know this is only our second day together, but I need you to know something. I am serious about you, about us. I am not playing games or passing time. If that is too much too fast, tell me now and I will slow down." Clara reached over and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "It is not too much. I feel the same way." He squeezed her hand gently, relief evident on his face. "Good, because I am falling in love with you, Clara Foster, and I do not think I could stop even if I wanted to." "Then do not stop." Samuel was sitting on the porch when they arrived, and Nathan once again helped Clara down from the wagon. He said good night to both of them, promised to come by the post office the next day, and drove away into the gathering dusk. "You are glowing," Samuel observed as Clara sat beside him. "Am I?" "Like a lantern, it is good to see." He patted her hand. "I like him. He has honest eyes and a firm handshake. Those things matter." Over the next several weeks, Nathan and Clara fell into a rhythm. He came to town every Tuesday and Friday as always, but now he spent as much time as he could spare with Clara. They took walks. They attended church together. They had supper with Samuel, who grew stronger each day and was nearly ready to resume his full duties at the post office. Nathan proved to be as good as his word. He was serious, steady, and completely devoted to Clara. He brought her books he ordered from Denver, knowing her hunger for reading material. She packed him lunches on days she knew he would be working far from the ranch. They wrote letters to each other during the days between his visits, silly notes that said little of importance, but meant everything. One evening in late October, as the first snow dusted the mountain peaks, Nathan arrived at the post office just as Clara was closing up. He looked nervous, his hat in his hands, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "What is wrong?" Clara asked, immediately concerned. "Nothing is wrong. Everything is right, actually, too right. I need to talk to you and your father." Clara's heart began to pound. She locked the post office door and led Nathan to their house, where Samuel was preparing supper. The older man took one look at Nathan's face and smiled. "I will put coffee on," Samuel said. They sat around the small table, and Nathan cleared his throat. "Mr. Foster, Clara, I have been doing a lot of thinking and planning. I have saved nearly enough money to put a down payment on land. There is a quarter section for sale about 8 miles east of here. Good water and grass, close enough to town to be practical but far enough for privacy. I have talked to the bank in Denver, and they are willing to give me a loan for the balance and for a small herd to start." He looked directly at Samuel. "I would like your permission to marry your daughter. I know we have not been courting long, but I am certain about this, about her. I promise I will work every day for the rest of my life to make her happy and keep her safe. I will build her the best house I can. She will never want for anything I can provide." Samuel looked at Clara. "What do you say, daughter? Do you want to marry this man?" "Yes," Clara said without hesitation. "Yes, I do. Then you have my permission and my blessing." Samuel reached across the table and shook Nathan's hand. "Welcome to our family, son." Nathan turned to Clara, his eyes bright with emotion. "I do not have a ring yet. I wanted to ask first before I spent money on something you might not want, but I am asking now officially. Clara Foster, will you marry me?" "Yes, Nathan Ellis, I will marry you." He stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. Clara felt tears on her cheeks and did not care. This was joy, pure and uncomplicated. This was the beginning of everything she had not known she wanted. They decided to marry in December, giving Nathan time to finalize the land purchase and Clara time to help her father train someone to assist at the post office. Samuel was well enough now to resume his duties, but he was not as young as he once was, and the work was demanding. A young man named Thomas Reid, recently arrived from Kansas with his family, proved to be a quick learner and a hard worker. Clara felt comfortable leaving her father in his care. Nancy Wilson and several other women in town helped Clara prepare for the wedding. She wore her mother's wedding dress, carefully altered to fit. Nathan bought a new suit from the general store, black wool that made him look unfamiliar and handsome in a different way than she was used to. The ceremony was held in the town hall, transformed once again, this time with winter greenery and candles. Reverend Morrison performed the service before a crowd of nearly everyone in Empire City. Clara had lived there her entire life, and people had watched her grow from a child to a woman. There were tears and smiles as she and Nathan exchanged vows, their voices clear and certain. "I promise to love you in all seasons," Nathan said, the traditional words made new by the sincerity in his voice. "In hardship and in ease, in sickness and in health, until death parts us." "I promise to stand beside you always," Clara responded. "To be your partner, your friend, your home. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my days." When Reverend Morrison pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed her with a gentleness that made her heart ache. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. It was December 1882, the start of winter, the start of their life together. They spent their wedding night in the small house Nathan had been building on his newly purchased land. It was not finished, just 2 rooms with a roof and a stove, but it was theirs. He carried her over the threshold and set her down carefully, watching her face as she looked around. "It is not much yet," he said, "but I will make it beautiful for you, I promise." "It is already beautiful because it is ours." She turned to him, suddenly shy despite everything. "I am happy, Nathan, happier than I knew was possible." He pulled her close, his hands gentle on her waist. "Clara Ellis, I like the sound of that. So do I." That night, in the small house that would grow with their life together, they began their marriage with tenderness and patience. Nathan was gentle, aware of her inexperience, focused on her comfort and pleasure. Clara felt cherished in a way she had never experienced, seen and known completely. They fell asleep wrapped around each other as snow began to fall outside, blanketing their land in white. The winter that followed was hard in the way all winters are hard in Colorado. Snow piled high, and temperatures dropped so low that water froze in buckets overnight. But inside their small house, Clara and Nathan built a life. He worked from dawn to dusk, caring for the small herd of cattle he had purchased, repairing fences and slowly expanding the house. Clara kept the house warm, cooked meals that filled Nathan with fuel for his labor, and began planning a garden for spring. She still helped at the post office several times a week, unwilling to leave her father completely on his own. It gave her a connection to town and to the work she had always known. Nathan never complained about her absences, understanding that she needed this piece of her old life even as they built their new one. In February, Clara realized she was pregnant. She told Nathan one evening as they sat by the fire, his arm around her shoulders, both of them tired from the day's work. "I am going to have a baby," she said simply. Nathan went very still. Then he turned to her, his face transformed by wonder. "A baby, you are sure?" "As sure as I can be." "I think it will come in early autumn." He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "A baby, our baby. Clara, I do not have words for what I feel right now." "You do not need words." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach with infinite gentleness. "Hello in there. I am your father, and I already love you more than I knew I could love anything." Clara laughed through sudden tears. "You are going to be a wonderful father." "I hope so. I want to be. I want to give this child everything I did not have. Stability, security, 2 parents who love each other and love them." The pregnancy progressed without complication. Clara continued her work, though Nathan fussed over her constantly, worried she was doing too much. Samuel was thrilled at the prospect of becoming a grandfather, already planning toys he would carve for the baby. The women of Empire City showered Clara with advice, some of it helpful, much of it contradictory. As spring arrived and the snow melted, revealing the brown grass beneath, Nathan finished expanding the house. They now had 4 rooms, a bedroom, a small nursery, a kitchen, and a parlor. It was not grand, but it was well built and tight against the weather. Clara planted her garden, vegetables and herbs and flowers her mother had grown. As she worked the soil, feeling the baby move inside her, she thought about the strange path her life had taken. A letter. Everything had started with a letter. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, coming up behind her and resting his hands on her shoulders. "How one moment can change everything. If you had not written that letter, if I had not worn the yellow dress, we would not be here. I would have found another way, some way. I would have kept trying until you noticed me. I noticed you long before the letter, you know. You did. Of course I did. You thought I was unaware of you watching me through the window. I am not that oblivious." She leaned back against him. "I just did not think someone like you would be interested in someone like me. Someone like me. A broke cowboy with more dreams than sense. Someone handsome and strong and kind. Someone who could have chosen anyone." Nathan turned her to face him, his expression serious. "I chose you because you are you, the way your mind works, the way you care about people, the way you see stories in everything. Those are the things that made me fall in love with you, not your face, though I think you are beautiful. I chose you because my heart recognized yours. That is the most romantic thing you have ever said to me. I have been practicing." Summer came in hot and bright. Nathan's small herd multiplied, and he hired 2 ranch hands to help with the increased work. The Cottonwood Ranch, as they had officially named it, was beginning to establish itself. People in town knew the brand and knew Nathan Ellis as a fair employer and an honest rancher. Clara grew large with the baby, moving more slowly but never complaining. She continued to help at the post office, though less frequently as the summer heat made the journey to town exhausting. Nancy Wilson visited often, bringing food and company and making Clara laugh with stories about her own pregnancies years before. In September, on a day when the air smelled of coming rain and the cottonwood trees were just beginning to turn gold, Clara went into labor. Nathan rode to town and brought back the doctor and Nancy Wilson, then paced outside the bedroom door like a caged animal, unable to sit still or focus on anything but the sounds coming from inside. Samuel arrived in the afternoon, having closed the post office early when he heard the news. He sat with Nathan, providing calm companionship while the younger man worried. "She is strong," Samuel said, "and determined. She will be fine. What if something goes wrong? What if I lose her? You will not. Have faith." Labor lasted through the afternoon and into the evening. The sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and still Nathan waited. Finally, as full darkness settled over the ranch, he heard a new sound, the sharp, indignant cry of a baby. Nancy opened the door, her face tired but smiling. "You have a son. Both mother and baby are healthy. Come meet him." Nathan entered the bedroom on shaking legs. Clara lay against the pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a small bundle, and she pulled back the blanket so Nathan could see. The baby was red-faced and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and tiny, perfect features. His eyes were squeezed shut, and his mouth worked as he made small noises. Nathan sat carefully on the edge of the bed, afraid to move too quickly, afraid this moment might shatter like glass. "Our son," Clara said softly. "Would you like to hold him?" Nathan accepted the baby with infinite care, cradling the small weight against his chest. Something profound shifted inside him in that moment, a reordering of priorities and purpose. This was his son, his child. someone who would depend on him completely, who would learn from him, who would carry forward the life Nathan and Clara were building together. "Hello," Nathan whispered. "I am your papa. I have been waiting to meet you." The baby opened his eyes briefly, unfocused and dark blue, then closed them again. "What should we name him?" Clara asked. They had discussed names throughout the pregnancy but never settled on one. Now, looking at their son, Nathan said, "Samuel, after your father, Samuel Ellis." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Papa will love that. And when Samuel is old enough, I will tell him about his grandfather, who kept the Empire City Post Office running for 30 years and raised the finest daughter a man could hope for." They let Samuel Foster come in and meet his grandson, and the older man wept openly as he held the baby. "He looks like you did when you were born, Clara. Same nose, same serious expression. I hope he has Nathan's temperament. I was a fussy baby, according to Mama." "You were determined, not fussy. There is a difference." Young Samuel thrived. He was a healthy baby, eating well and growing quickly. Clara recovered from the birth faster than Nathan had dared to hope, soon back to her usual energy and activity. The small house filled with the sounds and rhythms of infant care. Crying in the night, cooing during the day, the soft sounds of nursing and rocking and lullabies. Nathan had never been happier. He woke each morning to Clara beside him and his son in the nearby cradle. He worked hard all day, building their ranch and their future, and came home each evening to warmth and laughter and purpose. This was what he had dreamed of during all those years of drifting from ranch to ranch, this sense of belonging and building towards something that would outlast him. The years that followed were good ones, though not without their challenges. Cottonwood Ranch grew steadily. Nathan proved to have a gift for ranching, an intuition about cattle and land that served him well. Clara managed their finances with the same careful attention she had given to sorting letters, ensuring they spent wisely and saved consistently. When Samuel was 2, Clara became pregnant again. Their daughter was born in the spring of 1886, a tiny, delicate baby they named Rose after Clara's mother. Rose was quieter than Samuel had been, more content to observe than to demand, and she had Clara's honey-colored hair and intelligent eyes. Samuel Foster lived to see both grandchildren grow into toddlers, spending his final years dividing his time between the post office and the ranch. He died peacefully in his sleep in the winter of 1887, and though they mourned him, there was comfort in knowing he had seen Clara happy and settled, had known his grandchildren, had lived to see the legacy of love he and his wife had created continue into another generation. Clara took over as postmaster officially after her father's death, working part-time with Thomas Reed's help. She brought young Samuel and Rose with her sometimes, letting them play in the post office while she worked. Samuel, who was 4 by then, loved sorting letters into the cubby holes, careful and serious like his mother. Rose preferred to look at the pictures on advertisements and packaging, studying them with intense focus. Nathan continued to expand Cottonwood Ranch, eventually owning a full section of land and running several hundred head of cattle. He hired more men and built a proper bunkhouse for them. The original 2-room house had been expanded again and again until it was a comfortable home with 6 rooms, a wide porch, and a root cellar for storage. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Nathan and Clara stood on that porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple. Samuel and Rose were asleep inside, worn out from a day of play. The evening was warm with the smell of blooming things carried on the breeze. "Do you ever think about that first letter?" Clara asked, leaning against Nathan's side. "Sometimes. I still have it, you know. I kept it." "You did? Why?" "Because it was the bravest thing I have ever written. I wanted to remember that courage." He paused. Do you still have it? Of course. It is in my mother's jewelry box along with all the other letters you wrote me. I never knew you saved those, all of them, every single one. She turned to face him. They tell our story, Nathan. From that first letter to the ones you sent me when you had to go to Denver for business to the silly notes you leave me when you go out to check the herd early. They are our history. Should we give them to the children someday, so they know how their parents fell in love? I think that is a beautiful idea. Clara stood on her toes and kissed him. Thank you for being brave enough to write that first letter. Thank you for being brave enough to wear yellow. They stood together as darkness settled over Cottonwood Ranch, over Empire City, over the mountains and plains of Colorado Territory. 5 years had passed since a letter had changed both their lives, and the love that had started with that simple act of courage had grown and deepened, and become the foundation of everything good in their world. Samuel grew into a thoughtful, serious boy who loved learning and books like his mother. Rose was more adventurous, following her father around the ranch, wanting to help with everything. In 1889, Clara gave birth to their third child, another boy they named James. He was a happy, easy baby, content, and placid where his older siblings had been demanding. The ranch prospered. Nathan's instincts and hard work, combined with Clara's careful management, made Cottonwood Ranch one of the more successful operations in the area. They were not wealthy by any means, but they were comfortable and secure, able to provide for their family and even help others when times were hard. Clara continued her work at the post office, finding that she enjoyed the balance between her home life and her public role in town. She had hired a young woman named Alice to help with the children, giving her time to pursue both her work and her interests. She started a small library in Empire City, donating many of her own books and encouraging others to do the same. It was housed in a corner of the town hall, but it served its purpose, bringing reading material to people who would otherwise have no access to books. Nathan served on the town council, helping make decisions about Empire City's future as the town slowly grew. The railroad was rumored to be coming through within a few years, which would change everything. Growth would accelerate, bringing both opportunities and challenges. Nathan wanted to ensure that growth happened thoughtfully, preserving what made Empire City a good place to live while embracing necessary progress. One evening in the summer of 1891, nearly 9 years after that first letter, Nathan and Clara took a rare evening to themselves. Alice watched the children, and they rode out to the high meadow where Nathan had taken Clara on their second day together. The cottonwoods were fuller now, and the stream ran clear and cold. They spread a blanket and lay on their backs, looking up at the sky as stars began to appear. "Do you ever wish your life had turned out differently?" Nathan asked. "You could have left Empire City, seen other places, maybe married someone with more education, someone who could give you fancy things." Clara rolled onto her side to look at him. "Never, not once. This life, with you, with our children on this land we are building together. This is exactly what I want, even though it is hard sometimes. Even though you work long hours and we have more worries than comforts, especially because of those things. We built this, Nathan. No one handed it to us. Every bit of comfort we have, we earned together. That means something." She traced the line of his jaw with her finger. "And you give me something more valuable than fancy things. You give me partnership. You see me as an equal. You listen when I speak. You respect my mind and my work. Do you know how rare that is? It should not be rare. It should be normal. But it is not, which makes it precious." She kissed him softly. "I love you, Nathan Ellis, more now than the day we married, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. That is the gift you have given me, a love that grows instead of fading. I love you too, Clara. You are my heart. You and those 3 children sleeping back at the house. Everything I do is for you, for them, for the life we are making. They stayed until full darkness, talking and dreaming about the future. Samuel would be old enough for school soon, and they debated whether to send him to the one-room schoolhouse in Empire City or see if they could hire a tutor to come to the ranch. Rose showed an interest in horses that Nathan encouraged, believing a woman should know how to handle herself in this country. James was still too young to show his personality fully, but he had a smile that could light up a room. As 1891 turned to 1892, Cottonwood Ranch celebrated its 10th year. Nathan threw a party, inviting neighbors and friends from town. Tables groaned with food. Children ran everywhere, playing games while adults talked and laughed. It was a celebration not just of the ranch but of community, of the connections they had built over the years. Clara stood on the porch of their expanded house, watching the celebration, feeling content in a way that went bone deep. Nancy Wilson came to stand beside her, both women watching their children play together. "You look happy," Nancy observed. "I am. Completely, entirely happy. You deserve it. You and Nathan both. You have built something good here. We have been lucky. Luck has nothing to do with it. You worked hard. You were smart. You chose each other and kept choosing each other." Nancy squeezed Clara's arm. "That is not luck. That is commitment." Nathan appeared at Clara's other side, slipping an arm around her waist. "What are you two discussing so seriously?" "Life," Clara said. "Love, the usual, deep topics for a party. Someone has to balance out all the frivolity." She leaned into him. "Thank you for this, for all of this." "You are welcome, though I think I am the one who should be thanking you." They watched their guests together, their children running wild with joy, their land stretching out around them. A decade had passed since a cowboy wrote a letter to the postmaster's daughter, and the life that had grown from that single act of courage was more than either of them could have imagined. The years continued to roll by, bringing changes and growth. Samuel proved to be exceptionally bright, and when he was 10, Nathan and Clara made the difficult decision to send him to a boarding school in Denver. It was not because they wanted to be separated from him, but because they wanted to give him opportunities they could not provide on the ranch. Samuel himself was excited about the prospect, hungry for knowledge and new experiences. Rose grew into a capable young woman who could ride as well as any of the ranch hands and had a gift for working with animals. She helped her father train horses, displaying patience and intuition that made Nathan proud. She had no interest in traditional feminine pursuits, preferring leather and denim to dresses, and Clara supported her daughter's choices, remembering her own occasional chafing against societal expectations. James was the gentle soul of the family, interested in plants and growing things. He spent hours with his mother in her garden, learning the names of herbs and flowers, understanding what each needed to thrive. He talked about becoming a doctor someday, wanting to help people heal. In 1895, Clara gave birth to their 4th and final child, a daughter they named Grace. She was a surprise, coming when Clara was 35 and thought her childbearing years were behind her. But Grace was a joy from the moment she arrived, a happy baby who grew into a delightful toddler who charmed everyone she met. Nathan turned 40 that year, still strong and capable but beginning to feel the effects of decades of hard physical labor. His back ached on cold mornings, and his hands were stiff sometimes. But he was satisfied with what he had built. Cottonwood Ranch was well established and profitable. His children were healthy and happy. His wife still made his heart race when she smiled at him. One day in late autumn, Clara was working in the post office when a young woman entered carrying a baby. She looked travel-worn and frightened, her dress dusty from the road. Clara recognized the signs immediately, someone running from something. "May I help you?" Clara asked gently. The woman hesitated, then said, "I am looking for work, any kind of work. I can clean, cook, sew, anything." "What is your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. This is my daughter, Emma." She held the baby closer. "Her father, he was not a good man. I left him, but I have nowhere to go and no money. I just need a chance." Clara studied the young woman, seeing determination beneath the fear. She made a decision quickly. "Can you start today? I need help at home. I have 4 children and the youngest is still quite young. The work is hard, but the pay is fair and you would have room and board." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Truly, you would hire me just like that without references. I have good instincts about people. Come, let me close up here, and I will take you home to meet my husband." Nathan was initially skeptical when Clara arrived home with Sarah and baby Emma, but he trusted his wife's judgment. They gave Sarah a small room off the kitchen and put her to work. She proved to be exactly what Clara had sensed: hardworking, honest, and grateful for the opportunity. Emma was a sweet baby who quickly became a playmate for Grace. As the 19th century drew to a close, Empire City continued to grow. The railroad had indeed come through, bringing with it rapid expansion. New businesses opened. More families arrived. The town that had been small and intimate when Clara was young was becoming something different, more prosperous but less personal. Clara and Nathan watched these changes with mixed feelings. Progress was necessary and brought benefits, but there was something lost too, some sense of community that had existed when everyone knew everyone else. They tried to preserve what they could, hosting gatherings at the ranch, maintaining friendships, teaching their children the value of knowing their neighbors. In 1899, as the century turned, Nathan and Clara celebrated their 17th wedding anniversary. Samuel was away at school, but Rose, James, and Grace were home, along with Sarah and Emma, who had become part of their extended family. They gathered around the dinner table, sharing a meal and stories and laughter. After dinner, Nathan pulled Clara aside. "Come with me. I have something to show you." He led her to the barn where he had hidden a gift, a beautiful wooden chest, intricately carved with cottonwood leaves and flowers. "I made it for you, for your letters." Clara ran her fingers over the smooth wood, admiring the craftsmanship. "Nathan, it is beautiful. When did you have time to do this?" "I have been working on it for months, a little bit at a time in the evenings." "Open it." Inside, the chest was lined with soft fabric and divided into compartments. But more importantly, it already held something. Every letter Nathan had ever written to Clara, carefully preserved and arranged chronologically. "I found where you kept them," Nathan admitted. "I wanted them to have a proper home, a place where they would be safe for as long as they exist. Someday, long after we are gone, maybe someone will read them and know that we loved each other truly." Clara could not speak through the tears. She threw her arms around Nathan, holding him tightly. After all these years, he could still surprise her, still show her new depths of his love and thoughtfulness. "Thank you," she managed finally. "Thank you for every letter, every word, every moment of these 17 years. Thank you for saying yes, for wearing yellow, for choosing me." They stood in the barn, holding each other as they had hundreds of times before, as comfortable together as breathing. The century was ending, but their love story continued, as strong and steady as the day it began. The new century brought changes both welcome and challenging. Samuel graduated from his school in Denver and decided to pursue law, enrolling at a university back east. Rose, at 18, married a neighboring rancher's son. a young man Nathan and Clara both approved of. The wedding was held at Cottonwood Ranch, a joyous affair that brought together people from all over the region. James, at 15, was still determined to become a doctor and studied every medical text he could get his hands on. Grace, at 6, was the light of the household, her laughter filling the spaces Rose's departure had left empty. Sarah and Emma continued to live with them, Sarah having become far more than an employee. She was family. Nathan's hair was now thoroughly gray, and Clara had silver threads running through her honey-colored locks. But when they looked at each other, they still saw the young man and woman who had met at a dance, who had fallen in love over letters and conversations and shared dreams. In 1905, Clara was offered the position of Postmaster officially, the title rather than just the duties. She accepted proudly, one of the few female postmasters in Colorado. She ran the post office efficiently, and with the same care her father had shown, and people respected her judgment and fairness. Nathan served several terms on the town council and was instrumental in bringing a proper school to Empire City, with multiple teachers and proper supplies. He thought often of his own limited education and wanted to ensure the next generation had better opportunities. Their life was not without sorrows. They lost friends to illness and accidents, the inevitable toll of years passing. They worried about their children, as all parents do, hoping they had prepared them adequately for the world's challenges. They faced droughts that tested the ranch and harsh winters that took livestock. But through everything, they faced it together, a partnership forged in love and strengthened by time. In 1910, Nathan and Clara celebrated their 28th wedding anniversary. Their children were grown or nearly so. Samuel was now a practicing lawyer in Denver, married to a woman from Philadelphia they quite liked. Rose had given them 2 grandchildren and was pregnant with a 3rd. James was in medical school, determined and focused. Grace, at 15, was already talking about becoming a teacher. That night, lying in bed in the house they had built together, Nathan pulled Clara close. 28 years, it has gone so fast, and so slow in the best way, like every day was full. Do you remember that first letter, every word? I could recite it if you asked me to. I was so nervous writing it, I thought you would laugh at me. I nearly cried when I read it. No one had ever seen me like that before, truly seen me. Nathan kissed her forehead. I see you still. Every day I see you. You are the most remarkable person I have ever known. We have had a good life, have we not? The best life. Better than I dreamed possible. They fell asleep holding hands as they had nearly every night for 28 years. The years continued their steady march. Nathan's health began to fail slowly, his body finally giving in to decades of hard work. He developed a persistent cough that the doctor could not seem to cure, and his energy diminished. But his spirit remained strong, and he continued to run the ranch with help from capable managers and Rose's husband, who had taken an increasing role in operations. Clara remained vital and active, still running the post office at 50. Her mind was sharp, and her compassion had only deepened with time. She was known throughout Empire City as someone who would help anyone in need, who had wisdom to share and patience to listen. In the spring of 1915, as the world grew dark with war in Europe, Cottonwood Ranch celebrated its 33rd year. Nathan was 65, his hair white now, his face deeply lined but still handsome to Clara. They stood together on the porch they had stood on countless times before, watching the sunset. I have been thinking about that letter a lot lately, Nathan said, the one that started everything. Why? Because I want you to know that if I had my life to live over, I would write that same letter. I would make that same choice. "You are the best decision I ever made, Clara Ellis, and you are mine." She took his hand, feeling the familiar calluses, the strength still there despite his weakening body. "Whatever comes, whatever time we have left, I want you to know I have never regretted a single moment. Not even the hard times, especially the hard times. They showed me what we were made of, what we could endure together." Nathan died in his sleep 2 years later in the early autumn of 1917. Clara woke to find him peaceful beside her, his hand still in hers, his face relaxed in a way it had not been in months. He was 67. They had been married 35 years. The grief was immense, a physical thing that made it hard to breathe. But even in her sorrow, Clara felt gratitude. They had been given so much time, so much love. Many people lived entire lives without experiencing what they had shared. The funeral was held at the Cottonwood Ranch, and people came from all over the region. Nathan had touched many lives, had been respected and loved by those who knew him. Samuel came from Denver with his family. Rose brought her children. James took time away from his medical practice. Grace, now 22 and teaching in a nearby town, came home to support her mother. They buried Nathan on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the cottonwood trees he had loved. Clara stood by the grave long after everyone else had left, talking to him as she had every day of their marriage. "Thank you," she said finally. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for the letter. Thank you for loving me so well. I will miss you every moment of every day, but I will not despair. We built too much beauty for that. I will live, and I will remember, and I will make sure everyone knows what a good man you were." Clara lived another 15 years after Nathan's death, remaining active and engaged until the end. She finally retired from the post office at 65, turning over the duties to a younger generation. She spent her time with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling them stories about their grandfather, about the early days of Cottonwood Ranch, about a letter that changed everything. She kept the wooden chest Nathan had made for her beside her bed, and sometimes she would take out the letters and read them, hearing his voice in the carefully formed words. The first letter, yellowed now with age, was still her favorite. She could still remember the feeling of reading it for the first time, the way her heart had raced, the hope that had bloomed in her chest. Clara died in her sleep in 1932, at the age of 72. Her children found her with a smile on her face, one hand resting on the wooden chest, the first letter lying open beside her. They buried her next to Nathan, under the cottonwood trees, with a headstone that read, "Clara Foster Ellis, beloved wife, mother, and postmaster." She saw stories in everything. The ranch continued under Rose's management and eventually passed to her children. The wooden chest and the letters were carefully preserved, becoming a family treasure. Future generations would read them and marvel at the love story they told, at the courage it took to write a first letter, at the wisdom it took to wear a yellow dress. Empire City grew and changed, eventually becoming a small city rather than a town. But some things remained constant. The post office still stood, though much expanded. The town hall, where Clara and Nathan had danced and later married, was now a historical landmark. And Cottonwood Ranch, though modernized and expanded, still bore the name Nathan had chosen with Clara's help, a reminder of a perfect afternoon by a stream when everything was still new and anything seemed possible. The letter that started it all, carefully preserved in its wooden chest, survived through generations. It became a symbol in the family of the power of courage, of speaking your heart, of taking a chance on love. Young people would read it and feel inspired to be brave in their own lives, to reach for what they wanted instead of waiting for it to come to them. And somewhere, in whatever place exists beyond this world, Nathan and Clara Ellis were together again, young and whole, still falling in love with each other every day, still grateful for a cowboy's courage and a woman's willingness to wear yellow, still writing their love story across eternity. The legacy they left was not just in land or money or even in the descendants who carried their names. It was in the example they set of partnership and respect and enduring love. It was in the lesson that love is not just a feeling but a choice, made daily, through good times and bad. It was in the knowledge that sometimes the most important things in life begin with the smallest acts of courage: writing a letter, wearing a yellow dress, saying yes to possibility. Their story became part of Empire City's history, told and retold, embellished and celebrated. But the truth needed no embellishment. It was extraordinary enough on its own. A cowboy and the postmaster's daughter who built a life together that spanned half a century, who raised children who made the world better, who loved each other with a steadiness and depth that time only strengthened. In the end, that was their gift to the world. Not just Cottonwood Ranch or the descendants who would carry on their name, but the proof that true love exists, that it can be found and nurtured and sustained. That sometimes, when you are brave enough to reach for it, happiness is possible. That letters matter, words matter, and the courage to speak your heart can change everything. The town of Empire City, Colorado, stands today as a testament to the pioneers who built it and the love stories that gave it heart. And among all those stories, none is told more often or remembered more fondly than that of Nathan Ellis and Clara Foster, whose love began with a letter and never ended, echoing through time, inspiring each new generation to be brave, to speak their truth, and to believe in the transforming power of love.